What are your names and what do you guys do?
I'm Chris Gadsden. I'm a lifelong resident of Jersey City, principal at Abraham Lincoln High School, father, married for going on 19 years.
Wow. How many kids?
Three.
3 kids.
3 beautiful girls, 12, going on 13, 10, and 6. Community advocate, leader, whatever you want to call it, / this, that, and the third. Formerly, councilman in Ward B, the west side of Jersey City, and just passionate about just helping people and just helping to improve, other people's lives. And so that's who I am.
And Pam, what about you?
So I'm Pam Johnson, lifelong resident of Jersey City. As Chris said, I'm a mom. I have 2 beautiful kids. They're grown now, almost 27 and just turned 21. And I am a new grandmother of an almost 2-year-old little baby girl named Samaya. And so I'm excited about that. I am the executive director of the Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition Movement. And, I just show up where necessary. So.
Tell me a little bit about, growing up in Jersey City and, talk to me about the changes in the last, decade and how do you feel about the changes?
Well, I grew up 70s, 80s. Jersey City was a little bit different than what it was, what it is today. I grew up in primarily 2 sections of Jersey City. I grew up along the west side, 357 West Side, right across the street from the Board of Ed. Attended, 38, from K to 8. Then I moved up on the hill, Greenville, and then I attended Snyder. I lived on Wilkinson for a couple of years. And so, graduated and then, I went out with my mom. She moved out of Jersey City. She moved out for various reasons. She didn't like it no more. It was during the time, of crack, right? And during that time, a lot of people just wanted to get out because it was just crazy. So my mom wanted a better life, so she moved out, to Piscataway. And then eventually in North Brunswick, I traveled out there with her because I didn't want to be homeless. So I started to attend. I attended Middlesex County College. I got some credits, and then I came back home for, after a year, away. I attended NJCU. At that time, Jersey City State College, and then they transitioned it to NJCU, and got my degree in, sociology and history, with a focus on secondary education. And then I started teaching in the Jersey City public school system. Started off as a substitute teacher, a teacher assistant, a teacher. 2011 became vice principal at Lincoln High School, and just last year became the principal at Lincoln High School. But before that, I spent a year on the city council. And so, growing up in Jersey City, I had many heroes and a lot of people who helped influence me and, to be the man that I am today. So, when I see the changes in Jersey City, one of the things my grandfather has said, he was one of the earlier black cops in Jersey City. He was like, you always gotta be at the table. You always gotta be in the mix. So just imagine growing along the west side when you start seeing old industrial factories, purple dye factories, old coronium fields. Just, back in the days, they called it Cancer Alley. Back in the days, on 440, 2 guys sunk into the ground. All that land that the Bayfront is on, that was toxic. Society Hill was just non-existent back then, right?
Liberty State Park was also...
Liberty State Park was off limit.
Horrible. Berry Lake Park. Yeah.
So all these areas, Jersey City transitioned from an industrial juggernaut into companies moving out, during the 60s, during the unrest, whatever you had, people moving from off, they call it the white flight, people moved out of Jersey City, leaving just the neighborhood just in a barren wasteland, right? But a lot of people who, like my grandparents and a lot of people's grandparents who moved up to Jersey City, like from the Great Migration down south. Like people moved from South Carolina and came up into Newark, came into Jersey City during the 1920s and 30s because they wanted whatever, a new stock of housing and they wanted some work. So back in the day, and then, during the 40s, a lot of our relatives, they fought during the war and everything else like that, right? And so governmental policy during that time basically said, you had different incentives to be in a war. So people came home with GI Bills, or like a lot of our people, we weren't afforded the opportunity to live in, newly formed, country village and all these communities that were sprouting out during that time. So people were marginalized living in, the Greenville. So people were taking GI Bills and buying homes. We were greeted with, new housing gardens like Montgomery Garden or like Booker T, which was one of the first housing projects, right? Marion and different places, like they were all developed for people who was coming home from wars, people who needed, places to stay. As people migrated, whatever, from the South, they already had an allotment of houses. So fast forward.
I didn't realize it's been around for that long. Wow.
Very long time.
During the 40s and 50s.
History.
Oh yeah, deep history of the housing projects, right? And deep, history with just where people of color were allowed to live during that time, right? Because my grandfather was one of the first black families to actually live below the boulevard. And so when you used to talk about a time when you're growing up, like we weren't afforded the opportunity, to live in certain places because redlining was real. And then during that time, the allotment of houses that were actually built, these projects and everything else, were built along waterways, built along bridges, built along just highways and things like that, because like Kerry Woods, stuff like that, like that was built along a highway because you wanted people to be you wanted lower income, whatever folks to be unseen, right? On the outskirts, while you created these mini suburbs, these Levitt-type towns and everything else like that, right? So time started to change though. As people, the urban plight, the decay and everything else inside of the neighborhoods, to incentivize the old industrial areas, during the 1980s, under the leadership of like Mayor McCann, and during that time, revitalization started to happen, they called it, right? So you see Newport and all the rest of these waterfront areas started to develop. And over time, to incentivize whatever development and things like that took place, the abatements and all the stuff that people talk about, right? So Jersey City grew, from the 80s going into the 2000s and things like that. And so the transition has been somewhat gradual, but over the last decade, folks have seen it almost expedited. Because when we was coming up, it was a great thing, whatever, to see Newport, coming, yo, I got a shopping place, I can go to a movie, I could do this. And you, it benefited you. And then all transportation and everything else led to that development, whether it be on West Side, whether it be on Ocean, whether it be whatever, you actually had access into this new, whatever, development. So to me, and I try to paint this long story because folks sometimes got to see the gradual change inside of Jersey City. A lot of people at Newport was developing in the underlying area. Then you had the Latino, whatever, the Puerto Rican population that kind of moved during the 1940s and 50s, whatever, up until Columbus, moving into Monmouth, moving to those areas. They were suddenly, during the 1980s and 90s, they were suddenly displaced and suddenly forced to move into other areas, of Jersey City. So the changes that have happened because, folks during the 1980s and 90s have taken advantage of just the old industrial buildings, the lack of development that was taking place, cheap land and everything else like that. And folks came in with long dollars and just basically did what they needed to do. They did what they needed to do. So the changes have been for about 30 or 40 years, very gradual, but now we can see that it's just heightened a little faster. It's almost there's an undertaking, the last bit of land that folks had, the last bit of living space that folks had for decades is slowly eroding away. And that's the thing, whatever, that's really kind of alarming people, especially people of color, because now it's like where do we live, or where do we stay now? You know what I'm saying? What's going to be carved out, whatever, for us? Because as time went on, you know, the economics and everything else, whatever, hasn't really changed, you know? It's just that folks, whatever, got more money in one particular place and others don't. But that short amount of money can't afford anything. You know, like I'm running out of stuff. Like, I can't afford housing. I can't afford to hold it down and take care of my family no more. And that's the, transit. Because even when people came up in the 30s and 40s and 50s and things like that, whether I worked in that pocketbook factory, whether I worked at Holiday Fair, whether I worked at whatever department store, my dollars were long enough to take care of that rent, to make sure I got some food, to make sure I did some things, whatever, I could buy some cars, I could do some other things. I maybe didn't purchase real estate, but I was able to hold it down. And right now, the stress and strain of individuals, particularly in this one particular area on the south side of the city, is basically saying, I can't do it no more. But they see other people living well, you know what I'm saying? Other people who are moving in, doing their thing, getting their piece, they're like, man, this thing's changing and things like that. So that's the transition, and that's the thing, whatever, that I see. And that's the thing, what my grandfather basically said, like, listen, when you see things, whatever, like, you don't keep your mouth shut. Like, you always gotta, speak about it and stuff like that, because that matters, especially with, with us, like black people, like we gotta have our voices always heard, So that's, it's a long.
No, I mean, keep going.
It was necessary,
No,
and it even showed like the purposeful acts of, how the neighborhoods transitions, right? We talked about redlining, living below the boulevard and things like that, and how now we can't afford to, live where we want to live.
Yeah.
Or even afford to take care of our families in some cases.
It's real. Like, I remember when I first got married, and I moved my wife out from Brooklyn, out here. I was living up, when I graduated from NJCU, like I moved on Warner, between Jackson and Rose. So when I moved up there, like my wife was like, like I got a job and you got some money, you know what I'm saying? So why don't we just go in and buy a house? So I was like, all right, fine. So we would ask realtors, to take us out and everything else. And the gentleman, I remember he kept showing me all these properties on Myrtle and Boswick and Wilkinson and things like that. I said, listen here, so I said, I don't mean no harm, but you ain't about to do that red line and crap with me. Like, you're gonna show me some other properties, whether it be in the Heights, whether it be on West Side, the West Slope, downtown, whatever. You're gonna open up the lot of housing, because all that housing does not exist in just one place. And don't look at the color of my skin either. Like, look at my credit score, and look at the fact I'm pre-qualified, and take me to a place where I can shop. So then, I thought it was a big thing for me and my wife at that time to actually live like below West Side. Right. Remember I told you about living West Side? Yeah. Like living like between West Side and Mallory. Historic, the area of Filipino, it's an area of diversity. It's an area just where people, whatever, all cultures, whatever, down on the West Side. So I was like, oh, this is what's up. This is what my grandfather, whatever, did. Like he said, like, fine, like, I mean, you could be black, but you could also, whatever, not just be marginalized. And so that's the way I took it. So when I moved up on Union and I purchased my first house along West Side, psychologically it was more so like I'm breaking through a barrier. If that makes sense.
Right, no, that makes
Made you feel good, right?
Made you feel good because now,
I mean, you fought for something and you.
That's right. And got it.
Let's talk about the situation going now with affordable housing, and I think there's a confusion, like what's affordable housing, what's available, what does mixed income housing, and what is affordable housing? Is it even affordable? Can you like clear that up?
Well, for me, sometimes like affordable housing, and the way I've been looking at it over the last couple of years, especially sitting on council, because there's different type of affordable housing, whether it be low income, for veterans, moderate, whatever you want to call it, right? The majority of the affordable housing that's being built, right? It's moderate. It's something whatever for the something for the first whatever making over $60,000. I mean that type of housing, right? And then is the low income housing, right? And that's the type of housing that needs to be protected. And that's the type of housing, whatever, that you can't let go, because remember I told you people got short, you know what I'm saying, short dollars. So they have to continually have low income housing. The problem sometimes is that in between, right? It's that worker professional. I mean, like it's that security guard. It's that person, whatever, who making $40,000, who just don't qualify for low,
right,
and just don't have enough money, whatever, for that moderate. So like all the development that's taking place right now, because I posted this on like the mayor's blog, because he was talking about the Bayfront project, and basically saying that, we're gonna have 20%, we're gonna no load in 20%, but we're aiming for 35. Well, when you're aiming for 35, what type of housing gonna be in that 35? Is that housing in 35 gonna be that moderate stuff? Because, when I look at the development of, let's take Bayfront. I got Society Hill, market rate. I got NJCU West Side, market rate. I got development inside of the Water Street development with Fields and with other people, 400, Claremont LLC, which is in the Claremont Culver, like market rate, right? So everybody's market rate, and then now the type of housing that's going to be placed inside of Bayfront is going, and the buzzword that gets people kind of ticked off, especially market rate people who have money, is to say, well, what type of affordable housing you gonna build?
Right.
Like, who gonna live in my neighborhood? Right. Especially people down in Society Hill and things like that. They were like, whoa, look, you're not gonna mess up the property values, whatever, of me, because I've been down in this Coronium dump or whatever since Roosevelt Field, right? So my increase has been coming up. So you're not gonna about to hit me, whatever, with no people making under $35,000. Not able to take care of their place, because there's an element, like there's always an element of classism, racism, and things like that always accompany the conversation about affordable housing, right? So in that particular area, the problem is, what type of housing are you going to build? There's not enough low-income housing, and the low-income housing that exists, it exists in housing development projects. I don't like using that word. It's aligning itself along Martin Luther King Drive and all along the South Side. And one of the things, whatever, that I sitting on council that I was kind of, appreciative of was when Councilwoman Waterman basically was like, well, we need some low income inside of Ward E. Like, we need to dedicate low income. Like, not the moderate stuff, because the conversation, like, if you look at any development inside of E, all these new developments, it's always that moderate stuff, right? So I appreciated the conversation, because I mean, just imagine if you took somebody, a family from Marion, and you put them up on some of them high rises, right? It changes my perception. It changes the dynamics a little bit. It makes me feel as though like I deserve this type of housing, and then I'll inspire. Like I'll continue to work even harder, because I want that to be sustained. You know what I'm saying? Like my family grew up out of Booker T, like 96 Fremont, right? So when they moved into an apartment building and not having to live inside of like public housing, it was just like, whoa, I can live in an apartment, take care of some things, send my children whatever to school, and not live with the stigma or whatever of being low income and impoverished and things like that. So I just think that the conversation with affordable housing, like, there need to be more for people who don't have, and nobody's willing and courageous enough, whatever, to build it, because it's just my belief that you're not going to build low income housing, because it's me being pessimistic. You don't want low income incomes here. You just don't want it, whatever, here, because it's messing up the money. Like, and then what's happened over the last couple of years is that as housing developments have been phased out, whether it be the old Lafayette, right? Like, it's not like it's a huge amount of the original inhabitants who came back to the old Lafayette. It's not even managed by public housing. It's managed by like 5 different management companies, whatever, in that development. And a lot of people didn't come back. Montgomery, the tower's knocked down, and then you have where there's new development that's taking place. Whereas, yeah, fine. It's affordable, with moderate, with touches of some low income. But you didn't build enough low income to bring the original inhabitants back inside of Montgomery, right?
And that's what we see a lot.
I
don't think people really know how much we see that, and that we've seen it in history, happen. Because even with the Booker T, like when you say mixed income, that tells you right there that there's a percentage of people who will not be brought back.
Not be brought back.
Where do they go?
Well, they go to Willenboro. They go whatever to where that Section 8 voucher, whatever will take them. Because, hopefully they'll find some stock, whatever, in Jersey City. See, what happened with Montgomery was a lot of people who moved up from Montgomery moved up on the hill, like moved them into Salem Lafayette Court and all the rest of those areas. But then you won't worry about, well, why is this spike in crime? Why is spike in shooting?
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought
Why you spiked the shooting?
Right.
Well, because you moved inhabitants in one area who had a problem with somebody, and you moved them right on top of each other. Because now, why they did that? Why they do it? Well, why did they move? Well, they moved because I need a place to live.
Yeah.
Right. But my kids are having some problems with this kid. Now, the parents were trying to make sure that they survive and have a roof over their head, but these kids, whatever, said, I don't like this group, and I don't like that one, right? So our policy and development has caused crime. Like, we did it, like, government officials, mayor, I don't know who you want to call them, council people in the past, you did it on purpose. You did it on purpose, and no matter how much, whatever you try to explain this or say it, everybody like, no, we like the new change. Everybody likes a little change, growth, and all the rest of these keywords, but I'm not tripped up. What you did was, like, there's a lot of people, whatever, who don't live around here no more. Like, the population of my school, when I became vice principal at Lincoln High School, I had at least 1,100, 1050, 1,100 students. I'm running 670, right? Where the 400 and some 500 some people go? Where they go? They moved.
Right.
They moved. And the problem with housing and all the rest of that stuff is that the people who moved into the neighborhood along Park Street, along the historic Bergen Hill, which is called Astor Place, the problem with that is they ain't sending nobody to our schools. So 12 School, which is a feeder school, only has about 200 people in it. Now, when I taught at 12 School my first early years, we was busting 500 people inside that little small school.
What do you mean feeder school?
It's a feeder school, so your feeder schools pump into the high schools.
Okay.
12 is a feeder school, 17 is a feeder school, 14 is a feeder school. If people are not inside of the elementaries and middle schools and things like that, they're not coming into the high schools. Okay. And if the neighborhood is seeing whatever that my school is some type of eyesore or some type of violent haven or stuff like that, they're not sending their children to the schools. But the new residents that are coming in, they're not looking at the existing schools and things like that. They're looking for other things, to get their children into. And so, this housing issue is having an effect on just everything, whether it be education, whether it be economics,
like
whether it be...
Right now in Jersey City, I just came back from City Hall. There was a press conference about affordable housing in the downtown area.
Jersey City Together did that, right?
With James Solomon.
Oh, James Solomon, okay.
Yeah, so, and then yesterday there was a JCBOE meeting with the budget cuts, and there's all these, crises happening, and it's kind of like blowing up.
Yeah.
In our faces.
At the same time.
And
but they all could have been, prevented.
Yeah.
Like any reasonable town or city takes the property taxes, takes it, spends it on their kids, spends it on public safety, does what they have to do with their dollars. Jersey City basically said, beginning in the 1980s, I'm going to take some property tax dollars, but then I'm going to take abatement. I'm going to take pilot money. I'm going to take that money and do what I need to do for the city government, and in disregard, didn't do what they needed to do for the public schools. And Jersey City doesn't fund its schools, right? But it hides wealth, all right? Because there's two ways that you have to fund schools, like two ways school funding is determined. The capacity of a city or a township or whatever is to pay, and the needs of the kids. the needs of the kids are still there, especially when you start talking about whatever this side of the city. But Jersey City and this reval and everything else is revealing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why Sweeney and everything, like, y'all could pay more, right? So all these things could have been prevented if people, whatever, would just do what they have to do. Like, Jersey City has to fund the schools. Jersey City has to build quality housing for all residents, not just for people, whatever, who they anticipate coming from Williamsburg, from Manhattan, from the surrounding areas who can't afford that no more. They have to build housing for, you know, for everybody, and not just whatever, just build the housing. Like, I've always said this, especially on city council, like, where's the incentive to empower residents to purchase so that they can even get another level, whatever, of you know, like another level of life. I'm a homeowner, like, that feels good.
I mean, it seems like Jersey City is also becoming a transient city because there's so many of these, you know, tall high-rises, and there's not a lot of opportunities to buy homes. You know. Oh
no, there's opportunity to buy homes.
Depending on what you pre-qualify for.
No, see, and that's the thing. So other people are coming in, taking advantage of housing stock that exists. And the existing residents.
But I meant for locals, you know, people
for locals.
For people who live, you know,
they can't afford it.
I mean, now it's
homeowners. Yeah, because of our economic practices have driven up the market.
Yeah.
And because we've driven up the market, now the folks who live here are not able to pay.
I want to touch base on something you said as far as like the displacement and the increase in violence. And I always try to make a note because I know that violence in our community and the folks who perpetrate the acts and the victims are always painted to look like they may have been involved in something, and so it's kind of victim shaming and blaming, almost. And I'm not saying that folks are not involved in anything. Right. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that is not the main reason why things are happening, right? And it can happen to anyone. I don't want to give anyone a false sense of hope saying you're safe if you're not involved in anything, because that's not true. We had an 11-year-old girl shot before. We had a little boy shot by the post office in the face. You know, we had a young man on Sackett Avenue who was working on his car as a mechanic and got shot in the head. That's true. So all of these were non-targeted shootings, but they weren't written up that way. And part of it is the media, part of it is political, part of it is just folks don't care sometimes. But the displacement of housing sites and complexes have definitely, like Chris said, contributed to the increase of violence. And even, I remember when my son was in high school, he's 21 now, and I was looking for an apartment. I've always lived on the south side. I grew up on Wade, I live on Princeton, but I always lived in that area. And I was looking to go a little further down, and I'm not really sure why, I just was looking to move. And my son was like really like drilling me on like, where are we going, where are you looking? You know, even when I was looking to purchase a home, where are you looking, Mom? And I'm just like, why does it matter? Like, we can go anywhere we want to in the city. And you know, you have this young man who never been in trouble, and I'm just saying that to say like he doesn't meet the criteria of what they say a victim or an assailant will look like, but yet and still he let me know that we couldn't move past Armstrong.
Sure.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Sure.
And he's like, Mom, because we're from up top, and like the mix, you know, when you cross a certain barrier, you can't feel safe, you know?
Sure.
So when you talk about victims and you talk about people perpetrating crimes and stuff, like folks who are not entangled in what folks would want you to think like is the dangerous lifestyle feel like they can't live anywhere in their city. They can't maneuver throughout their city. And so these are folks that are not the, you know, quote unquote, what an assailant looks like or what a perpetrator victim looks like. And so I think that when we get that misconception out of our brains that your child, my child, anybody's child, anyone, your grandmother, my grandmother can be, you know, affected by violence, we'll do better by the whole city.
Right.
But if we keep separating folks depending on where you live at in the city, how much money you make, what's your status in life, you know, where your kids go to school at, we'll continue to try to protect the haves and to make sure we push the have-nots either further down or and eventually out.
Well, no, we was talking about like how social policy and how decision making have marginalized a group of people to now where people are being, it is my belief, people are being contained, right?
Absolutely.
Right now we're in containment mode, right? And so when you look at the affordability, you know, like when you look on the city website and, you know, you look at the affordable housing when you look at the affordable housing stock that's available, right? And when you click on those houses, you can see like what you qualify for. And like when you click on those houses, it's going to say low income along the stretch, right? If you do an overlay of just income, right? So you do the housing stock, you do the income, and then you do another overlay of the shooting, the shootings that have occurred and the people who have died, you know, in Jersey City, Hudson County. Over the last 10 years, over 300-something people have passed away inside of Jersey City. Homicides have happened in Jersey City, right? 260-something people have died on the south side below Montgomery and Curry Woods. So 260 people. So when you look at all those dots, whatever, they all line up, whatever, on top of each other. And so...
And that's public information.
It's really public information, you know? So now you see, whatever, all these police efforts and things like that. When you look at how the cars are situated, they're situated inside of the containment zones, right? So, fine, like we'll go to a meeting and we'll talk about just public safety efforts and things like that to curtail crime. And I'm not, whatever, knocking police and everything else like that. But our law enforcement sometimes get used as a tool, whatever, to keep the entrapment, whatever, at play. And so, but then it's also used to basically say, listen, we're cleaning up in the area, and it's eventually going to be safe for you to drop your dollars into this particular area, right? So the mayor would say, well, let's finish the deal on the south side. Not only we have 280 Grove Street, but we're gonna have a city hall annex. We're gonna have annex. We're gonna improve the light rail. We're gonna continue to improve the infrastructure because you need a reason to come on this side of town, whatever, to invest. All the while, the containment, whatever, is still occurring and still happening. So it's real obvious, whatever, to the, if you take panoramic view, like you sit them on top, you're like, dang, these people moving nice. You know, so all these things are being done deliberately by social policymakers who see the big picture. The pawns in this whole thing are people, whatever, who got to make the decision in order to get the thing done. And so they actually do the bidding of every last person. They do the bidding of the developer. They do the bidding of just those folks who got the interest. And that's why, like, it's hard for me. It was hard for me as a council person to kind of play this game because it's just wrong, and especially when you have conscience. Like I'll be in meetings with a certain developer, and I'm like, well, how come you can't, whatever, dedicate 20% because it's too expensive? And when I go into the Affordable Trust Fund, they only give me $1,500 or $15,000 for a unit, and a unit costs $300,000. The type of housing I'm building, whatever, costs more than what the city's giving me in that trust fund. I said, but don't you have a conscience? You don't care about how people live around here? So you want the new neighbors. Okay, fine. I get what you're doing, all right? I know your bottom line is profit. I totally get it. But do you care about the people who are living on this block? Because when you put this thing here, the surrounding housing stock is going to say, oh, I got more value in this place. I'm gonna have to raise your rent, whatever, by $200 because there's no rent control, whatever, in two-family housing, right? So you have to bounce because I know I can get more from this because people are coming in.
Absolutely.
So everybody is at fault, whatever, for this whole thing, right? And until whatever, like, you start putting that thing on blast, what happens is things is going to continue to happen. Like nowadays, you ask a elected official, well, what's your opinion on this type of development that's taking place?
Some don't take any opinion.
They don't take an opinion. They'll say,
which tells you what side they're on.
They ain't taking a side.
Right. Well, they don't take the community side or the developer side.
Yeah,
but
they don't take a side.
Said, the community doesn't want it, but I'm still not going to take your side because I don't want to get caught up in the middle of that. And so
because like when you sitting at that cocktail party, or when you inside of that person's face, like, and that person coming in here, whatever, looking all rich and everything else like that, you get all intimidated and things like that. And then like one of the first things, whenever I told a developer at NJCU, I was like, the first 4 days, like the first 2 days, like I got sworn in on the 20th or something, on the 22nd or something. I'm sitting down with Burns and everything else like that, and they talking about NJCU and everything else like that. I said, let me ask you this question. I ain't no jack. I was like, well, what type of housing you building? Well, it's going to be all market rate. I said, market rate? I said, where's that studio going to run? Where's that studio? 14 on some dang studio. 1 bedroom, 18? Oh, $1,800? I said, who can afford that? I said, you know, I'm going to tell you this. I said, I don't like your project, right? I don't like your project because for a lot of reasons, right? You're going to place.
You mean tell me you said that as a councilman?
I said, I don't like your project, right? I don't like your project. And then I don't like your project because all you builders who build don't employ Jersey City residents. You don't do this, the fine, all that stuff, the disparity and all the rest of that stuff. So I said, until you become conscious, like, I don't know when that's going to be. But I can't really support that because my conscience won't, and because there's thousands of other people who, because of this project, like this project right here is going to set it off. Like this project is going to transform this whole particular area. But now people are talking about whatever. See the cultural whatever side, like people who advocate for culture and arts and all the rest of that stuff. I'm not against that. But now, you know, anytime you place a performing arts center, or this, that, and this, and everything else like that, you're changing the dynamics and you're changing the affordability of a particular area. And the only thing that I've asked for anybody, whatever, who came to me with a project, is to be conscious enough to care about the other people who live in the neighborhood. And that just doesn't happen, right?
What can the community do? So let's say, you know, people are watching this and they're asking themselves, okay, I want to get involved. Like, what can I do? You know, I'm pissed off about what's going on. I want to voice my opinion. What can they do? Instead of, you know, going on social media and saying things, like what can people do to kind of, you know, be actionable and help the community and give back?
And that's a great question. You know, the first thing that we have to do is form an agenda that basically outlines where we stand and everything else like that. Because people don't know what to do until they know why they're doing it or what purpose are they doing it for. See, everybody else had the agenda. The developer had the agenda, the city had the agenda, everybody else had the agenda. Now, once we get that, then we can go on somebody's face, actionable items, and basically but it takes a massive amount of people to do this. Like, the masses are not woke, and that's the problem. Like, the problem is that the folks who are suffering the most can't fight. You know, and you know, sometimes like I get a little emotional with that because you're beating up on people.
That's right. Who can't fight for themselves.
Who can't fight for themselves.
So how do we fight for
and
them?
Then, well, it takes that. What I'm saying is, it takes hundreds and thousands of people to actually rally and care and actually put and then tell your people to tell. Like when them developers go to City Hall and the first people that they meet is that deputy mayor who's going to sit down there and look at whatever this, that, and the third in the project, going to talk it over with the mayor, and he's going to do this, that, and then the mayor's going to go whatever and say to the council person, maybe you should talk to that council person in that ward, and then that person like going to a horse and pony meetings out of the neighborhood, and then the neighborhood's going to be like,
it's too complicated. So people are just like, I don't want to do it.
But it's not too complicated. Like if you had
see, that's what I'm saying. They think it's too complicated.
Conscious people got to ask, who got to force people to be conscious. But there's not enough of us, and that's the sad part. That's the sad part. So you ask the question of what could be done. The question is, when are you going to wake up, Mayor? When you going to stop the crap? Like, fine, you use the whole adage, well, it was all done before I was here. It was all done. Like everybody always passes the buck, right? Well, no, when are you going to care? Like. And don't give me your talking points. Like, don't give me your, we built more affordable housing, whatever, than any previous administration. We got more housing stock, whatever, on the upcoming next couple of years that's going to, whatever, far surpass. Nobody got time for that. People are leaving Jersey City. People of color, Black and Latino people are leaving because they can't afford the place, and you are not building enough housing. There was a study, whatever, that basically said that there's not enough in Jersey City. Like a whole Supreme Court ruling said the state of New Jersey is lacking in it. And so the courts and everybody else can say that, and you're not even going to move whatever on it. And your affordable housing that you're building right now is for another marketplace. Because the people who are going to, like, affordable housing works like this. It's not just whatever the people, whatever who may live in a particular, it's for the surrounding area. So when somebody's coming, whatever, from from New York and whatever, and they make it, and they say whatever, this moderate housing, 60% above 120 whatever percent of your salary, whatever. Like, these people coming from New York basically qualifying for that housing. So it's not just whatever somebody with long dollars, it's that graduate from NYU, whatever, who just got that job, whatever, this, that, and the third, to relocate over here, and they just got that house. That, you know, and then some places, like some developers, whatever, build buildings and don't even give the city the access, whatever, to the list to even challenge them to say, did you even put Jersey City people in the house? And the question is, who's monitoring the stockpile of affordable housing that's in Jersey City anyway? Who's monitoring it? Who basically holds them accountable? The furthest thing, whatever, that the mayor did, whatever, just previously, he put whatever a rent control board, whatever, to, you know, to make sure whatever people don't go above 4%, because sometimes landlords do something stupid, like when the previous tenant leave out and that rent is $900, that person whatever do some rehab or whatever, put a fresh stove in and a countertop, and then now saying whatever that place is like $1,800 and nobody checks it. So like we just started right now advocating for the low person, but there's not even enough people to do that. How many people on that board? 3? Who's monitoring affordable housing? So when these new projects go up, like who's checking the list? Who's checking the list? Because there was not enough people checking the list over there at Lafayette.
Or Montgomery.
I spoke to whatever Commissioner, whatever Jones, whatever, about what's going on in Montgomery, and he was basically like the, you know, housing authority now is really going to sit and monitor who, you know, the list. The list is like a majestical unicorn. You understand what I'm saying? Like nobody's monitoring that. So if nobody's monitoring that, and then people, whatever, with certain incomes are coming in taking advantage of the housing stock, even the governmental funds, the money, the CBG, and all the rest of this type of money, people are coming in, whatever, from different areas, taking advantage of housing in low-income areas, and it's not the low-income residents that live in the neighborhood.
Right.
That's how whatever Randolph, and that's how all the rest of these areas are developing. New people are coming in with these grants, and they putting down payments on their homes. Why can't the city basically take all that land in the JCRA, the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, dedicate 10%, whatever, that land to incentivize home ownership for people who live in the South Side?
So what you're saying is all politics, but what can people like me or people?
All I'm saying is that you have to continue to push the envelope and push the issue through media.
You're using your platform right now.
You have to use the platform. Everybody else has to galvanize and actually hold people accountable and make them do it until it gets done. Jersey City Together, you know, what they do is they be like, okay, they're like a bulldog on Bayfront.
Can I steal a fry?
Sure. They're like a bulldog on Bayfront. They're not letting you go. I'm holding my press conference. I'm doing this. And we're going to go through every stage and every phase. So what we got to do is take something, whatever, that's on our agenda, basically go bulldog on it until it happens. And it has to be incremental, like it has to be small. But see, the problem is that being that everything is also expedited through everybody else's cash and greed, that these efforts, while being genuine, may become like a little bit too late.
Isn't there a way, you know, so educate me if I'm wrong, but when developers come in here and they have, you know, they bought a land and they plan to build something, you know, there's a process, right, that they have to go through.
Yeah.
So, you know, can the community become involved in that process, and can they come and, you know, if a development is coming and you know,
Jersey City, whatever laws, Jersey City laws, like this is capitalism.
Right.
My money, I bought it, I build it. That's all this is.
But there's been community meetings discussing development.
I am not.
Now you can stop it.
The expert
if you got
on affordable housing.
If you got numbers.
Yeah, low income housing, moderate housing. I'm learning as I go along. I learned a lot from Chris. I've been talking to other folks and we also formed the Housing Justice Department in Jersey City Anti-Violence. And Chris Perez, who fights for communities when development doesn't make sense. And he fights for affordability, and he was doing that already and a part of Jersey City Anti-Violence, so he's in charge of that department. So I like to learn from folks who know much more than me, because this is not my field.
Right.
But I want to say is that I attended a couple of meetings with Jackson Hill, who is the Special Improvement District, 2.5 miles, largest district in Jersey City, all of MLK, Monticello, and a portion of Ocean in Ward A where I live. So I've been attending some of her community meetings because the developer or planning or zoning have to present the plans to her prior to anything happening. right? So, I mean, the meetings are poorly attended.
Yes.
There are reasons why, right? I'm not the one to blame people for not attending meetings. People got 2-3 jobs,
Right.
Stuff is going on. But for those small people who attend that meeting, it is then their job to go back into their community on their block and educate those who couldn't come to the meeting. That's one way to start circumventing.
So we've been covering
actual
the community.
facts as far as
we
about-
have been, excuse me,
That's right.
I got hungry, but we have been trying to go to the community meetings and write about
Right,
them,
right.
and unfortunately, it's people don't really read it, and that's
It's boring.
So here, this is my challenge.
To them anyway.
This is my challenge, and like you asked me today, how many blog posts do you publish? And we publish 3 to 4 articles per day, and a lot of the stuff, the article that we posted recently about affordable housing, went viral because of the nature of it. It was clickbaity, I guess, but we've written about issues many times, and it goes to deaf ears. And that's a challenge for me as a local blogger. Where do I find this happy medium between being a positive platform where I write about arts and culture and music and people and business and things like that, to also writing about the issues. And I try to push the issues, and I try to be truthful, but at the same time it goes on deaf ears. But then I'll post something else, and people will say, oh, she's never written about this before. But it's not true. We have. So this is a challenge that I go through. We just published about the press conference that just happened in City Hall, and it's not getting any hits. It's not getting any views. People are barely commenting, and this is the challenge that I have. You know what I'm saying?
Because that story is being covered by other media outlets. So like everybody is well aware of Jersey City Together. Like they know. So like you're not going to get the click because they're like, oh yeah, they at it again, right? But
also, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but what do you think that your demographics of the population of people you reach? What do you think is actually, like, have you ever did a study to see who's actually reading your blog? I read it, but...
So I know it's really it's a combination of people who are, just like either recently moved to Jersey City. I moved to Jersey City 10 years ago. Right. I'm here a decade, right? Not that I'm a lifelong resident, but I feel like I've been here, a while.
Right.
There's people who recently moved or the last decade, and there's natives who reach out to me all the time. They're like, you know what? Thank you for showing me what's going on and what's happening.
Okay. But I think it's the consistency and the presenting of this narrative that we're talking about right now. So while you may have had articles in the past about this particular issue, it's almost like in order to save folks, it almost got to ring the alarm. Now, Chickpea probably can't do that consistently because of the range of stories, whatever that you have to cover and stuff like that. So that's why it takes.
But I think I can though. I think this is great. I think and as I told you before, I think everything happens for a reason. And it's unfortunate that it kind of went this way, and I had all of us had to go through these things. But I think people are talking about it. It brought me to be able to sit with you right now, and for you to tell me all this history that I know my eyes are open, hearing more about what you're doing from a different perspective, and I'm going to continue meeting with different people as much as I conceivably can, and at the same time we are a blog and we aren't the Jersey Journal. It takes time for us to put together articles. It takes time for this is an hour interview. It takes hours for us to transcribe and put together.
Sure.
So I understand there's this need for immediacy, but we don't have the capacity of doing that. But I'm still not going to stop. I'm still going to continue. And the blog it's a work in progress. We're human beings behind it, and we don't have 30 editors. Everyone's scrutinizing. No, you should publish. You know what I mean? So I think it's all about learning and.
It's the consistency of keeping it real.
Yeah.
When you put stuff out there, whatever that keeps it real, it's sort of like whatever anything that we put on Facebook. I mean, you put on a serious issue, they be like, what's that? But when you come out, whatever, and just keep it real and just say it, they be like, for real, I feel the same way. And then it gets shared, it gets spun, it gets whatever. And that's what people want right now, because in order to wake a consciousness, to get people to go to a planning meeting, to go to this stuff, first you gotta be like back in the day, we used to go, ooh, ooh, like,
The call.
yo, you gotta go,
Yeah.
ooh, ooh, like, no, they come,
Like you said, ring the alarm.
Ring the alarm.
Too, I just wanted to put in this point. Like I said, I'm not the expert on this, but I can only go from what residents tell me when I'm advocating for them. And I've advocated for, residents who were living in like slum landlord housing, carbon monoxide leaking because you made some makeshift heating thing as opposed to really doing what you had to do. Management companies who no one resides in Jersey City. I mean, that management company when the building. When all that mess happened and they were a repeated offender of having violations after violations.
Trendy management.
There's no one guarding the hen house.
Right.
And that's a big problem. But I wanted to say too is that with the Booker T and any other housing complex where, there's been some rehabilitation and everyone may not go back in. So what happens with those, like Chris said, so now they're in other communities or they go outside of Jersey City. But I want to say too that folks with vouchers, so now you have different people owning homes throughout the South Side, right? Folks with vouchers, a lot of new homeowners don't want to take those vouchers. They don't want a Section 8 family living in the home that they just purchased.
I want them poor people living around me.
Right. It's a whole stigma attached to it. And there are different types of vouchers in Section 8 because you have families who, make a decent income, but, they're able to get a subsidy. So they're not necessarily poor, but they just need somewhat of an assistance, but it's looked upon very negatively. And a lot of new homeowners and some existing, they don't want them living in their home. So now they're faced with either living in some ran down home where maybe the owner lives in Pennsylvania, he doesn't care because you got a voucher, but he's also not taking care of his property either. Or moving outside of Jersey City, which is what we don't want. Like I don't want to be forced to move out. I don't own a home. I don't want to be forced to move out of Jersey City, and I'll fight to stay here. But bottom line is a lot of folks don't have the ability to do that. You have seniors who don't have homes, who are living with, their children who are barely making it. It's a lot going on, and when you see that happening in your community, and then when you hear about another housing site that is going to be, geared towards mixed-use income, I know what that means.
Phased out.
That means that
that's what it is. It's phased out.
Huge percentage of folks who will not be allowed back in there.
They ain't coming back.
It's reality. Whether somebody will say it or not, it is what happens.
No, that's
mixed use. That's what's gonna happen.
And to go back to Holland Garden, right? Like they're right now on phase 4, like because they presented 4 different plans, right? And the reason why they're in this predicament is because Holland Garden, the conditions of the homes, like there's not enough money, whatever, in HUD budget, that HUD allocates, whatever, to the housing authority to fix them all.
Right.
So now you got $25 million, whatever, to go and to build a tower, right? So right now they're looking at different developers and people like that who can do this work and to build those towers. The concerns of the residents is to say that when you're building that thing, whether in 4 or 5 years, and I'm all over the place, am I able to come back and live in that tower? And that's a concern that they have because there's no insurances that they could come back. Or what I'm saying, like you got to make real promises, whatever, to people, and that normally doesn't happen. And that's the thing that scares the hell out of people because I'm gonna be forced to live. I would like to. My income is this way. I want to continue to live off of this income, and that's scary for people. And
absolutely is.
It's scary.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, after this interview, what else? Like, who else can I speak to? Is there any, other people in the community that have, a perspective of this?
Well, you could talk to Mike Griffin. You could talk to a lot of people. Like, there's a lot of people who are knowledgeable, who understand all this, right? But I think the main thing we got to do is ask the powers that be. When you going to build? When are you going to protect? It's kind of like getting into other people's heads, and then kind of like incentivizes us to do it for ourselves too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need a plan to get it done. Other cities do this, whether you be in Baltimore, whether you be in San Fran.
Even in Newark.
In Newark they do it, but you got to be
Absolutely.
conscious.
I have a question for you.
You got to be conscious.
Are you going to run again for city council?
Running stuff. I ain't running.
I mean, you know, both of you, are either of you going to run for city council?
I'm going to run whatever if I feel as though whatever, like, you gotta have a voice at the table. Like the only reason why I won is because I was authentic enough for somebody can say, yo, I trust that dude enough to be at City Hall.
Right.
And I lost because the dollars were too big, and you know, it is what it is. That's politics. So we all should have our voice, whatever, be heard, and make sure we hold people accountable so we can, but I think this time.
Looking at me.
I'm like, I want to
Not for me to answer. Like, stop looking at me.
That's what it is. So it could be yes, it could be no. It could be if we get our acts together and form a collective of people to storm City Hall and do what you have to do. Who has to run for elected official, be an elected official when you could be the person pushing the agenda, or when you could be the person influencing?
Right.
Like who, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of times we just think that we have to be in office, and most times when we get in office, that's when we get quiet. See, that's when we get quiet.
Last thing I would ever want to do is.
That's when we get quiet.
So I think so. Since the election to 2017, everybody keeps asking me this question. Mostly my neighbors and the residents, who like when I go to different places, depending on what part of the award I'm in. You know, I think that what I was trying to do when I was running, because I had never ran
more
for public
women in
office.
politics.
Yeah, I think that I really
There's a lot of
wanted
women on council now.
excite and engage and empower the disenfranchised, right? I think that was who I really focused on.
Right.
You know, I stayed, first of all, I already knew that there were certain areas that I would never get a vote at, right? And that was probably Port Liberté, you know.
No, you can get a vote out of
I'm
there.
just saying at that time and not really running a strategic campaign, it was so grassroots.
Right.
And I'm so proud that we got almost 900 votes just on name recognition alone.
Yeah.
We could not pay people to pass out lit or anything.
Right.
So to get almost 900 votes on that premise, like I was excited, and I'm still excited about that. I don't know if I will ever run again. I don't know. I'll never say no.
Well,
Nobody will say that I said no and then I run.
I need a campaign manager.
Yeah, all right, girl. But what I will say is that I talked to my mother a little bit after the election. I think it was like early 2018. There was an issue I was advocating for. A young man had got hit by a police cruiser. You remember that?
Yeah.
We all did, and had the press conference. And even before that, I knew about it and was talking, you know, to folks trying to figure out what was going on and what steps he made. And my mother, she was like, do you think that you could have been that boisterous had you been councilwoman? And I said, absolutely not.
Yes, you could have.
Well, I think that folks the powers that be, would have tried to stifle my voice.
I think
No, you don't get
problem,
that.
And so
That's
I
the
think
problem.
that's the problem.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like, I actually see, like James Solomon, he's actually like.
No, he's very boisterous, and he's a friend of the org and a friend of mine.
That's because James got his own money. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. He does have his own money. But what I truly believe is that some things that I do, because sometimes I can't take the time to figure it out if it's the right thing to do. When people are hurting, I gotta do and say something about it. Like there's no who's gonna get upset. I can't think about that. So I think that in certain aspects you are more powerful that way.
Right.
I do believe that you do need allies in city government who can help you push your agenda forward.
The agenda, not yours.
Right, not mine. When I say mine, I mean the people, right? Because that's always the agenda. Like you said, it's not about Chris, it's about the people.